So hello everybody, and welcome back to this after-hours session, the second of our after-hours sessions, and the third main session for today's proceedings. So we're delighted to have another great lineup of speakers here. So far today we've been talking more about mid-band spectrum, so looking at both the C-band and then the broader mid-band ecosystem, and now we are moving on to speak specifically about meeting the connectivity requirements of different vertical industries. So having a panel that's going to be looking at the vertical industries, different ways, different licensing models, and different vertical industries, and how those their connectivity requirements, I suppose, can be met. So we've got an excellent lineup of speakers once again for you. So without further ado, I would like to bring up to the stage our moderator for the session, Colin Thompson. Hi, Colin, and welcome. And we're looking forward to the panel. So I'll pass over to you. Thank you.
Many thanks for the introduction, Dan, and good evening and welcome to our audience for this after-hours session on the exciting topic of meeting connectivity requirements for vertical industries. Thank you for joining us. As Dan has outlined, we've got a very topical and exciting issue for discussion this afternoon, and I'm sure that you'll find the presentations and opinions of our speakers interesting, insightful, and informative. So as Dan said, I'm Colin Thompson. I'm the head of the infrastructure practice with Access Partnership, and I'll be your moderator for this panel discussion. Access Partnership is the leading public policy consultancy firm focusing exclusively on the technology sector. We obtain and maintain market access approvals for our clients' technologies and services, and we monitor regulatory change to identify the risk and opportunities those changes present for our clients' business plans. Our clients are drawn from private and public sector stakeholders, as well as from the investment community for technology infrastructure. Now to the issue at hand. A major discussion point here in Asia and internationally is how to provide vertical industry users with access to 5G spectrum, be it for smart manufacturing and industrialization, healthcare, education, or another of the myriad of emerging applications seeking access to dedicated network resources. In response, national regulatory authorities are developing and implementing their 5G roadmaps and exploring different licensing models governing access to spectrum resources for this purpose, and grappling with issues such as, should private networks be supported by dedicated localized networks or by network slicing? At the same time, technologists and service providers are establishing new and innovative solutions to further improve spectrum sharing, spectrum efficiency, and improve quality of service and experience for their customers. This session will explore the status of these technology developments, the 5G roadmap, and the associated use cases and applications, and we will seek to identify the benefits and potential pitfalls of different regulatory solutions. To achieve this, we have a hugely impressive and balanced lineup of speakers drawn from national regulatory authorities, vendors, and service providers here in Asia and from further afield in North America and Europe. The speakers are Shingoni, the Deputy Director for Land Mobile Communication Division in the Radio Department of the Telecommunications Bureau from the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications in Japan. We have Reza, the Director of Emerging Spectrum Strategies for Intel. We have Raymond Riemann, Head of Industry Collaboration with Ericsson in China. Dennis Wong, Senior Vice President of Emerging Technologies, the Commercial Group with HKT. And Heidi Himenid, Chief Specialist with the Finnish Transport and Communications Agency, Traficom. Shingoni will set the scene, providing an overview of the 5G roadmap and approaches developed for both national and local 5G networks in Japan through MIC. Following from Shingo's presentation, I'll introduce each speaker in turn, who will spend approximately 10 minutes to share their experiences and observations on the 5G roadmap, technology evolution, and regulatory landscape, and to provide some real-life examples of applications. I believe that we'll also be running a couple of audience polls during the session, so please be alert to that and provide your answers. Hopefully, we'll have time to present the results of those towards the end of the session. The questions for the poll are: which vertical sector do you think will have the most prominent 5G use cases in the next 5 years? And the second question is: what spectrum access mechanism best suits industry vertical users? So with that introduction, I'd like to hand over the stage to Shingo.
Thank you for inviting me to the valuable conference. My name is Shingoni. I'm in charge of 5G spectrum assignment in Japan. And I really appreciate you giving us an opportunity to explain our policies for 5G in our country. My presentation consists of 3 points. First point is our roadmap towards the realization of 5G. Second point is the status of nation 5G. And final point is the introduction of local 5G as a new scheme in our country. Next slide, please. The slide shows our roadmap toward 5G in Japan. Before launching commercial 5G services, we took a variety of measures like making comprehensive field trials, participating in the activity for international standardization, and assigning spectrum for 5G. Unfortunately, the Olympic Games and Paralympic Games have no choice but to be postponed next year due to the outbreak of COVID-19. However, in our nation, government, mobile operators, and relevant actors prepare for the 5G showcase during the games, cooperating with other countries and firms. Please, next slide. Please, more. The slide represents the image of nation 5G. When assigning 5G spectrum, we replaced the conventional population coverage as an indicator, which eventually encourages mobile operators to deploy mobile base stations in urban areas to gain the percentage of the coverage. New indicator we set evaluate equally the deployment of 5G both in rural areas and in urban areas. The setting was behind that 5G is predicted to be utilized for a variety of areas with industrial possibilities in both areas. As a result, one of the new index shows that starting services in all prefectures, 48 prefectures in Japan, within 2 years after 5G frequency assignment. For example, NTT Docomo, as a leading mobile operator in Japan, already launched its services in all prefectures in June this year, though the coverage is still limited. Please, next page. The page shows the overview of mobile operators' establishment plans for 5G. 3 operators already started their 5G commercial services in spring this year, except for Rakuten Mobile, whose launch date is delayed to September this year due to the outbreak of coronavirus. All of them are promoting the deployment of more 5G base stations than they expected. The next slide, please. The slide is main issue in my presentation. That's local 5G. We created the scheme aimed at enabling various actors to make use of 5G network, apart from mobile operators' nationwide network. There are some advantages in the local 5G. First merit is that various players can establish their own 5G network without waiting for the deployment of 5G by mobile operators. Second merit is that they can customize their network with flexible specifications to meet local needs. A final merit shows that the operational 5G network is less vulnerable to communication failures, even if natural disasters like earthquake and flood take place often in our country. Please, the next slide. The slide represents bands available for local 5G. The slide is technical. It is available for 28.2 to 28.3 gigahertz. We are now considering additional spectrum assignment such as 4.6 gigahertz to 4.9 gigahertz and 28.3 gigahertz to 29.1 gigahertz to make more use of local 5G. The next slide, please. The page is an appendix, the guidelines of local 5G implementation published by MIC. Local 5G is used inside licensees, facilities, and premise. Besides, mobile operators may support local 5G providers, though they must not be given a local 5G license. That's because their nationwide network enables to realize local 5G. The rule is set in terms of boosting competitive 5G mobile market in Japan. Next slide, please. The last slide is a list of local 5G licensees and applicants in Japan. The licensees will make use of their local 5G for smart factory, test fields, and fixed wireless access. So we take measures continually for promoting 5G from the points of infrastructure and application. Thank you for listening to my presentation. That's all.
Okay, many thanks for that presentation, Shingo. It was very interesting, and it was good to hear about some of the real life applications of this technology from the Olympic Games to smart manufacturing to IoT. Now, with this in mind, and recognizing that you're making spectrum available for private localized 5G networks, is MIC's policy or objectives to focus on private 5G networks, or do you anticipate some action in the market from network slicing by the MNOs? Where do you see this going in Japan? What's the trend?
Yeah. So various players get interested in local 5G, and however, it is difficult for them to establish 5G system to boost their business. And we think that MNOs support local 5G players. So to cooperate with the deployment of 5G, and so the cooperation and competition between local 5G and 5G nationwide encourages to create a 5G use case and boost economic growth.
Okay, many thanks for that, Shingo. And if you don't mind, maybe one follow-on question. So for the private networks, your presentation focused on a few different bands. It focused on the mid-band spectrum at 3.5 and 4.5 gigahertz, and it also touched on the millimeter wave spectrum at 28 gigahertz. Now, we recognize that making spectrum available for private local networks may reduce speed to market and the agility of deployment. But I wonder, are you seeing a trend among the existing terrestrial cellular licensees to refarm their existing spectrum for 5G technology?
Yes, we are considering the additional spectrum assignment for 5G nationwide. For example, the spectrum is 4.9 gigahertz, 26 gigahertz, and 40 gigahertz. And
Okay.
so we have discussion. And in addition, we are promoting policy that the other band for existing other band for 4G or 3G will be used for 5G. That is because so using for 5G contributes to establishing wider coverage of 5G. And we believe that these policies will encourage to promote the deployment of 5G.
Okay, many thanks, Shingo, for your contribution and your interesting presentation. For our audience, Shingo is no longer able, is not able to stay with us any longer today, so he'll be disappearing. So with that, I would like to take the opportunity to thank him once again and to hand over the discussion to Reza from Intel. He's Intel's director of emerging spectrum strategies, and he will be talking to us about the 5G deployment models for vertical industries. So with that, I'll hand the discussion over to Reza. Welcome, Reza.
Thank you, Colin, and thank you for the opportunity. My opening is I'm using a few slides. If you could go through them, the main focus is on deployment models, but I start with a few slides on the status of vertical industries, because as you know, these are very diverse set of industries with a diverse set of requirements and needs. I start with the obvious slide of how 5G can unleash new opportunities for across many industries, and this is something that has been established so far. A couple of the industrial sectors that I show on the screen here, industrial and transportation, actually they have trade organizations that have been working for some time on their capturing their needs and how 5G can help them, what kind of features are needed, and what kind of needs they have in order to be able to use 5G in fullest. So some are ahead in terms of putting together their needs, but the others are also following. If you could go to the next slide, I want to start with looking at the potential, and this is a very interesting analysis done by KPMG late last year. The prediction is that across industries, over $4 trillion in value is to be taken by integration of 5G. On the horizontal axis, we have time as the number of years. The expectation is that, of course, the campus use cases, indoor use cases are going to be first, and then more widespread city use cases, outdoor will come next. and that's intuitive, makes sense. On the vertical axis, you have the percentage of the current revenue that would be unleashed by integration of 5G. And as I want to just point you to the two largest blobs here on the slide, and that's one manufacturing in the immediate left, and then retail on the right side, which will be coming later in KPMG's prediction is that it will have a tremendous impact 5G will have in terms of unleashing the additional value. And of course, this one and the next slide also are pre-COVID-19. So there is, of course, everything is expected to be shifted to the right somehow. This is also another interesting graph. The horizontal axis is still time, not in terms of years, but in terms of what use cases could be mainstream now versus what is in proof of concept stage or R&D stage, which will come later. So it's still time, but in a different way. The vertical axis is interesting here because it relates to the capabilities of the technology that would help these industries. On the lower level, you have alternative technologies available. These could be 4G, could be Wi-Fi, could be hybrid situations such as CBRS in the United States. And as you go up, you get into applications and within industries where requiring a 5G type performance becomes more important. And on the top, you have the use cases where 5G is strictly required, and the big blob in the middle on the top is related to manufacturing and also media. There's an overlap because of for instance, applications such as augmented reality or mixed reality have application not just on media but overall in manufacturing as well, in things such as smart helmets, etc. So again, manufacturing is on the forefront in terms of having started to look at 5G, but also the potential with the different use cases. Now we'll look at let's look a little bit closer into the industrial and manufacturing sector. If you can move to the next slide, please. Just on the manufacturing sector, the value, according to McKinsey, it's a very nice report here, that the value to be taken for manufacturing sector could be up to 650 billions of increase in GDP by 2030. And on the right, you see the breakdown of how they see within the manufacturing use cases, what different applications within that use case their share is of that kind of growth. Now, aside from the numbers there, another message to be taken here is that even within one sector, which is in this case manufacturing, the different applications within that sector have different types of in different ways to take advantage of 5G because they're different. They have different requirements. They have different requirements in terms of performance and also in terms of deployment models and how well and how soon can they take advantage of 5G and adapt. That is an important factor. That just shows that vertical industries are so diverse that it is a challenge, but at the same time an opportunity to try to build something that would work and help as many industries as possible. But it's expected that because of this diversity in use cases and applications and deployment models, the response to this should also be in that same way. Now, if we could move to the next slide. How to address this diversity in the vertical sectors? In our view, the answer should be an end-to-end answer. From the device to the edge, to the core, to the cloud, we need to implement the kind of intelligence and an optimization that would help bring about capabilities that address this quite a diverse situation here. So the intelligence needs to be distributed. The capabilities needs to be distributed across the network, and that is the approach that we have taken at Intel to try to address this. The next slide, please. Here's an example of, for instance, what we've been doing, focusing just on the access part, the using 5G over the air to augment and or replace the traditional way of doing things in factories. This is a joint proof of concept project between Intel and Bosch, where we were able to support deterministic QoS for time critical application, microsecond levels of latency, time synchronization with 5 nines reliability, using the capabilities of 5G and R, coupled with the kind of intelligence that I was just talking about, implemented in a distributed way. Next slide, please. So now let's come back and look at how different parts of the world have been reacting. Regulators and industry have been reacting to this upcoming and very important need. You see on the globe map here what has been happening in the United States, in Europe, and in some countries in Asia, and also similar activities in many countries that have started. And the approaches are not the same. As you can see, in some cases we have spectrum only in the mid ranges. In some cases we have both in the mid ranges and the high ranges. In some cases, there are approaches such as, for instance, CBRS. In some cases, you have, like Germany, you have dedicated spectrum for industrial sector, and in some other cases there are. This is being done or promoted to be done through operators. There's a variety of, and that is kind of expected. If you look at or if you remember the discussion we just had about the diversity of the needs of these industrial sectors, and even within an application, one size fit all, it doesn't seem to be working. So if you could move to the next slide, in our view, a hybrid approach where all options could be on the table depending on the situation, the regulatory situation within a country or a region, would be the best. If you, for instance, look at an example in manufacturing, small warehouse might be able to do what they want with a shared spectrum, such as CBRS, or with Wi-Fi, including, for instance, Wi-Fi 6, which has scheduling capabilities to lower interference. They could do that, or they could use shared license, or they could have something of their own. Now, a larger plant might need, with very strict requirements, might want to have more control. So when you look at the spectrum, this is something that could be provided by MNOs or leased or be owned by the facility. In terms of deployment, could be deployed by the facility or by the OEMs or by an operator. And in terms of operation, also this also could be run by an operator, a third party, or by the facility itself. And having all of these options available in each geography, we think is important in making sure that we could unleash the potential. I think that's all I had. Thank you very much.
Many thanks for that, Reza. Really super interesting. It was interesting to see that the evolution of 5G deployments according to the different industry sectors, with manufacture and retail leading the way, but also interesting on the other sectors: automotive, health, agriculture, media, and smart cities, that will also play a part. Also, I concur that a one-size-fits-all solution will not work, and perhaps different technologies will be applicable for different applications, as well as the different regulatory frameworks which can be applied to each. I'm sure that we'll come back to these and other questions following the different presentations with the speakers. So many thanks for your presentation, and if you'd like to hang around, we'll have a Q&A session on the conclusion of the presentations by all the speakers. So thank you, Reza. And with that, if I could now turn the stage over to Raymond Kyle, who is the head of industry collaboration for Ericsson and in China, and if he could lead off on his presentation, which will be focusing on 5G for industrial transformation. Raymond, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Colin. So my name is Raymond Qiao. I'm from Ericsson. And actually, I'm working in a team. We call it 5G for Industries. This is a global team focused on how we can really use 5G technologies and different network topologies, different architectures of 5G to really support the digital transformation of different industries. So next page, please. Yes, as I mentioned, this is a global program established a couple of years ago, and now we already have more than 50 different engagements with the industries globally. So we are very active in automotive and transport, also energy and utilities, manufacturing. Actually, we are quite focused in manufacturing, but there are different kind of manufacturing. So according to our experiences, we see there's lots of potential when the manufacturing need lots of automation in their process. For example, the car OEMs, they really need high quality of wireless and mobile connectivity like 5G. And we are also working in the area of mining to try to get the machines undergrounds controlled by the people from the office instead of get people into the mines, which is quite dangerous. So we are also working in logistics like seaports, how we can use 5G technology to enable the automation of the seaport, to do remote controlling, remote operation of the cranes in the ports, to lift the containers and to enable the smart and very automated logistic in the ports. And there are a lot more industries we are involved. I just share some examples. So why we are working with these industries? The first reason is for sure we need to gain understanding and insights. We need to learn from the industries about their requirements, about the typical use cases. We see although the use cases are very different from different industries, but we still see a lot of common use cases. So and then we can consider how we can support those typical use cases by technology. Another very important thing we are doing together with industry partners is we try to land some pilot or say lighthouse projects with 5G technology enabled. It's combined with the industrial transformation of digitalization. It's also relevant to industrial internet. We are also exploring very important fundamental technologies together with the industrial partners. Just for example, to enable manufacturing, normally we need to ensure that 5G technology can support the automation system. So we are working with the leaders in industrial automation to explore how we can use 5G to make their automation system wireless and more flexible. For example, we are working with companies like ABB, Rockwell, those companies together to verify industrial Ethernet, the different protocols of industrial Ethernet over 5G connectivity, and also TSN, OPC UA, those new technologies and new structures, how we can really support them using 5G technology. And then we also build pilot or lighthouse projects together with those partners, those leading partners. And then it's also very important to drive ecosystem development, because to really enable the digitalization of the industries, we need to work together with the partners from the different areas, like device side, like industrial applications. We need to work with them together to bring kind of an end-to-end solution to the end user. So this is how we are driving our activities in the area of 5G for industries. So in the next slide, I will share with you some one example. Actually, we already, as I mentioned, we already have lots of experiences and landing projects globally with the industries. But here I share a very typical one, which is 5G for Daimler Factory 56. And this is a new factory built by Daimler in Germany. And I say this is typical because according to what we see, this is the first commercial 5G dedicated network landing for a car, a very famous car OEM. So what we did in this project, first we built up a dedicated private industrial 5G network for Daimler in their factory. We cover a small area as a start, and in the future we will expand the network to the whole shop floor, to the whole factory. And we are using Ericsson solution called private network solution. This is designed for localized deployment of a complete 5G network according to the requirements of the industrial users. So as you can see from the slide, there is a enterprise core 5G core deployed in Daimler, and also we call it DOT system, which can provide indoor coverage for the shop floor. So with that, we can have a complete 5G industrial 5G system for Daimler. And in this case, there are also Telefonica as a mobile network operator involved, who can really integrate all the system and provide the services to Daimler. And as Ericsson, we are a technology provider, we are a solution provider, and we support with our products. So this is only a very typical example. And using this private network, we support Daimler to implement applications like AGV, which is a very typical mobile application. Another one is they call it data shower, to fill the data, the software into the cars. So this is about a big amount of data transportation. And then also the connected tools in the factory. This is very relevant to industrial internet. So as we can see, this covers different type of typical use cases for manufacturing scenario. Next page. So in previous slide, I only give you one example, but actually Ericsson has lots of experiences already, and we recently released a white paper. We call it a 5G spectrum for local industrial networks. But since we have very limited time today, so I will not introduce in details. So you can find the white paper with the link I shared from the Ericsson website. And there's lots of analysis of how we can really enable the industries by 5G technology, and some suggestions of how we can really better utilize the spectrum resources to support the industrial transformations. So that's it.
Okay, many thanks again, Raymond, for that presentation. It was interesting to see the breadth of applications that you have been focusing on at Ericsson, and I note that you only touched on a couple of those today in your presentation, and that further examples are available in your white paper. It was interesting to me that both yourself and Reza from Intel seemed to focus on the industrial applications, and also both of you touched on the importance of time-sensitive networking, which of course is one of the pillars of 5G that we were promised at the conception stage of the technology a few years ago. Once again, I'm sure we'll come back to a number of these issues on our Q&A session, but with that, I would now like to hand over the stage to Dennis from HKT, who is going to talk about their experiences in 5G. To remind you, Dennis is the Senior VP for Emerging Technologies in the Commercial Group at HKT, and I understand that his presentation is going to focus on different applications, but without a specific focus on the industrialization. So we'll look forward to that, and without further delay, I'll hand over the stage to Dennis.
Thank you. Thank you, Colin. And thanks to the event organizers for the invitations to this meaningful event. Good evening, everyone. Despite there is a COVID-19 outbreak across the world, we can actually leverage on technologies to get all of us together to exchange ideas online. And I wish everyone stay healthy and the disease will be suppressed very soon. And as said, I'm Dennis, and I'm actually leading the teams to focus on emerging technologies and smart city in HKT Limited. And we aim to use different technologies to help customers to accelerate the digital transformations and make Hong Kong to become a smarter and better city. Well, 5G is definitely one of the key technologies areas. And today I'm going to talk about some potential 5G applications in selected verticals and their use cases in Hong Kong. Next slide, please. And before that, let me use one slide to introduce about PCCW HKT, especially for those who may not familiarize with. And HKT is an incumbent telecommunications service provider in Hong Kong, and is also one of the carriers in the world who delivers our true quadruple play services strategy, which means one content can be delivered across 4 different platforms, while all the 4 platforms are owned by PCCW HKT. These 4 platforms, including the fixed telephone network and broadband internet mobile network, as well as TV content network. While under PCCW group, there are actually multiple business units. While HKT is the largest business unit to hold all the telecom and fixed and mobile access, we also have PCCW Media, which hold the license for the pay TV and free TV, in which we can produce the content and even broadcast the TV content. Apart from that, we also have the property development, etc. As said, HKT holds all the fixed and mobile telecom services in the group, but we are not just a telco. In fact, we also equip with the capability to deliver the end-to-end ICT solutions to enterprise customers, including the 5G applications, cloud, AI, IoT, or analytics, etc. Next slide, please. Yeah, along with the evolutions of mobile technologies, 5G, we believe, can actually bring the immersive experience, reliable and even time-sensitive services to the users. This completely change the user experience, or I would say it actually brings the user's experience to another level. With the characteristics of supporting massive IoT, ultra high bandwidth, together with the low latency, it could deliver the high quality of video broadcasting, or even with some user or even machines interactions in almost real time. This could enhance the productivity and some operational efficiency. Yeah, next slide, please. On 1st of April of this year, we actually launched our True 5G network in Hong Kong. As operators, our True 5G means we use the frequency spectrums of 3.3, 3.5, or even 4.9 gigahertz as the prime frequency, together with our territory-wide fiber backhaul to support an unparalleled 5G services at those Golden Bolt areas in Hong Kong. Apart from the mobile coverage, application is also equally important. And we deployed 2 pilot cases with our enterprise customers before our 5G launch. The first application cases is to work with the international airport for an CV2X, which is an autonomous vehicle at a private road at airport for the baggage delivery back to the arrival hall. And another use cases or another pilot cases that we deployed is to work with the hospitals and get the consensus from the patients and the doctor, which allows the doctors to wear 5G devices and transmit a 4K videos from an operating room to another locations with the medical interns for remote learning. And I would say both of them are very successful and truly demonstrate the power of 5G. Next slide, please. And in fact, we believe 5G is a super enabler for many applications in different verticals. In Hong Kong, I would say typical industries like constructions, healthcare, media, transportations, or I would say smart mobility, gaming, and even entertainment are typical examples. And I picked 3 of them to share a little bit more. Next slide, please. Well, for the 5G entertainment, as said, for the concert venues, if it is equipped with the 5G capability together with the 4K or even 8K with 360-degree camera, we can actually broadcast the live videos to the audience so that the remote audience can use the VR lens to watch the live show, or even they just have the experience similar to standing on the stage with them. Another use cases, probably you know that horse racing is one of the key sports in Hong Kong. With 5G, it can deliver the first user view of the jockey and broadcast multiple views of high-quality videos. This makes you ride the horse with the jockey together and even able to choose different angles as you wish in almost real time. Obviously, these 2 cases also bring the users to another next level of experience instead of just sitting at the auditoriums to watch the show remotely. Next slide, please. For media industry, as said, PCCW Group has a sister business unit, which is called the PCCW Media, and we have the license for producing and broadcasting TV content. While Now TV is our brand for pay TV services, Move, MOOV, is for the online music services, while View TV is for our free TV services. Blue Run is for domestic, and Yellow One is for overseas. With 5G enabled, we could enable the frontline reporters to carry 5G-enabled devices so that they can broadcast the first user view with high quality of video instantly to the back-end systems to process. Or even we can broadcast their video to the corresponding participants as they subscribe. This can also help to monitor and keep track of the safety of our frontline reporters with a 360-degree of camera to monitor the surroundings, to monitor the things surrounding them. Next slide, please. And last but not the least is about healthcare sector. 2 days ago, we just launched our telemedical consultation services in Hong Kong, which is called Dr. Go. Dr. Go is our first healthcare applications in Hong Kong, which provides a completely end-to-end telemedical consultation services. It allows the patient to schedule a doctor appointment with eKYC capability and do the remote consultations with the doctor and the patients on the go. While the patient can also settle the bill payment online through the mobile app. Lastly, we commit to deliver the medicines to the patient's locations within 4 hours. As Hong Kong is not a very big city, while the patients can even hear the guidelines on how to take the medicines via the mobile app. So if the patient is using a 5G mobile phone, the video quality of doing the remote consultations and the latency response will be even much better. And we initially partnered with a private hospital to launch these services and enable all their doctors to support remote consultations for their patients. But regard that this service is still limited to Hong Kong people at this moment because of the regulations from MCHK, the Medical Council of Hong Kong. Hopefully, if the regulations can be released in the future, we can serve more people outside Hong Kong. Next slide, please. All right, there are a lot of emerging technologies in the market, I believe, and which all the technologies and 5G will be supporting the digital transformations for different verticals or even different enterprise customers. So 5G becomes a super enabler to support all those technologies like robotics, AI, cybersecurity, or even IoT, etc. We believe this will accelerate the whole digital transformations and create lots of 5G use cases in the near future. And that's the end of my sharing. Next slide, please. If you have any further questions, you can feel free to send us the emails or contact us. Thank you. And I hand over the stage back to Colin.
Many thanks for that, Dennis, and a particular thank you for again sharing your experience of different use cases. I was particularly interested in the Dr. Go, the first end-to-end teleconsultation healthcare service. And I would anticipate that there was perhaps a little bit of pressure on yourself and your colleagues to have that service released to market, given the current climate in which we work in because of the pandemic. And I would fully anticipate that further similar applications will be developed in Hong Kong and around the world. It was also good to hear about the application of 5G to your PCCW team for the production and for the production, contribution and distribution of video networks, and to hear about the immersive experiences resulting from the a high quality video and virtual reality that you're able to provide over 5G. So with that, again, I'm sure we'll have additional questions on these topics at the end of the session. But with that, I would like to hand over to Heidi from Traficom. To remind you, Heidi is a chief specialist within the Finnish regulatory authority, and she is going to talk to us about meeting the connectivity requirements of different vertical industries. So with that, over to Heidi.
Yes, hello and good evening, good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Heidi Himmanen and I work for the Finnish Transport and Communications Agency, Traficom. And thank you for this opportunity to tell you about our situation in Finland and how we try to meet the spectrum needs for vertical industries. So next slide, please. So let me just start by telling you about 5G momentum ecosystem. This is quite a special approach that we have taken in Traficom and in Finland. Traficom is leading this kind of ecosystem with about 140 organizations as members to promote 5G and to support our industry and academia and operators in adopting and trialing 5G. So we arrange workshops and seminars, and we provide knowledge and support, and also expert work for trials and research and innovation. And we work in all these different all the different sectors of society, and try to encourage the stakeholders to think how they can use 5G. Just let me give you a few examples about trials and projects that we have ongoing in Finland. We had actually a 5G Innovation Award arranged by 5G Momentum, and we were looking to award 3 different projects that were innovative in 5G. And the winner was the Port Oulu Smarter Digitalization Project. So the Port of Oulu is working with a range of partners to develop, test, and utilize some of the world's first 5G solutions for industrial and logistics application. And the project stood out due to its innovative excellence, potential application, and scalability. Please go back. Thanks. The 2 other awarded projects were Luxturim 5G ecosystem, working with Smart City, and it has a local data analysis platform that is the first of its kind, and aims to take cities' digital services to the next level. And the 3rd awarded project was a remote medical expertise project, where the remote medical consultation and group education solution makes use of a 5G network to send a 360-degree video from AR glasses and patient data gathered by biosensors and other connected instruments to a remote viewing station. And this can be used also outside the medical sector, for example, in teaching or industrial maintenance and condition inspections of buildings, for example. And most of our trials are in the transport and logistics sector. So many related to road transport, drones, and also maritime transport. And also we have a lot of activities going on in the industry sector and the smart city sectors. Next slide, please. So let me tell you about mobile broadband in Finland. Here you can see the spectrum that we have been that has been assigned for mobile systems. We have 3 operators with nationwide coverage, And our 2G and 4G networks of each of the 3 operators cover more than 99% of the population. The Finnish spectrum policy is to make new spectrum quickly in use, and we don't have fiscal goals, so we don't try to collect a lot of money in the auctions for the government, but instead we would like the operators to invest in the networks. It makes the networks cheaper to build and easier to plan, with less congestion and more capacity. And as a result, with 3 competing operators and a lot of spectrum available, we have actually unlimited data subscriptions in Finland. We have very inexpensive prices, developed networks, the technically well-developed networks, and very good coverage. And for example, as you saw in the first session, in the presentation from Colleago, the Finnish, all the 3 Finnish operators were in the top when comparing the amount of used data per subscription. So we use most data in the world, mobile data. And for example, this talking about a few words about 5G, the 3.5 gigahertz band. Go back, please. Thanks. The 3.5 gigahertz band was auctioned in 2018 and is now where each of the 3 operators have 130 megahertz of spectrum, and they have been building out the 5G networks from beginning of 2019, and we have now 5G in 40 cities. And this year we had the spectrum auction in the 26 gigahertz band, where each of the 3 operators were awarded 800 megahertz of spectrum. And what is extraordinary or new to us in 2020, we have now we have now spectrum also for private and local networks. So in the 2.3 gigahertz band, we have reserved 20 megahertz for private networks, and in the 26 gigahertz band, we were reserving 850 megahertz for local and private use. There were also many discussions around the 3.5 gigahertz, but the decision was to give the whole spectrum to the MNOs. And next slide, please. So we give a lot of spectrum to our operators, to mobile network operators, but they are also doing a lot for the vertical sectors. Here are just a few examples of their trials and services. So, for example, there is a remote control tractor on 5G. We have industrial applications and the forest industry using 5G, and also the medical sector, logistics and harbors, and construction sites, for example. And next slide, please. Thank you. Then a few words about the interest for private or local spectrum that we have seen now. So the 2.3 gigahertz spectrum band is open for applications right now, and the 26 gigahertz local spectrum will be opened soon for applications. And now we have had applications or even we have granted licenses to some of these, so from power plants, ports, mines, factories, and different kind of campus areas have applied for licenses in the 2.3 gigahertz band. And we have also had some interest, but not applications yet, to short-term temporary networks, for example, for events and festivals. And also much interest from cities and universities. And as a response to the public consultation in the 26 gigahertz band, there were a lot of interest from different stakeholders that I have listed here on the right. So from the technology industries and real estate, federation, and construction industries, and cities, and agricultural producers union, and even from local fiber operators, and universities, and interest organization for SMEs. So this concludes my presentation, and thank you very much.
Many thanks, Heidi. That was, again, super interesting. In particular, my ears pricked up when you noted that the Traficom policy was to set no fiscal goals, no expectation of delivering direct funds to the government from the release of spectrum for 5G, and that you were seeking to ensure that there was a more affordable, less expensive network infrastructure. The networks were easy to plan, and in the hope that you have less network congestion and more capacity. It was super interesting. I was also keen to note your plans for future spectrum release in the 66 to 71 and in the 40 gigahertz bands, and perhaps I'll have a few questions on those later. But once again, to you, Heidi, and to the rest of the panelists, many thanks for your presentations. Now, if I turn back to the audience, at the beginning of the session, I flagged that we were going to have a poll, which would pose a couple of questions, and excitingly, we have the results of that poll in front of us. So, to the first question, it was multiple choice, but the question was, what spectrum access mechanism best suits industry vertical users? And we offered choices: local application or license sharing mechanism, spectrum access through a third-party platform, and spectrum leased from a mobile network operator, or a service provided by a mobile network operator. Now, it was very close, but the most popular answer was the final one, service provided by a mobile network operator. That commanded 36% of the vote, followed by a local application or license sharing mechanism, 33%. So those two were very close. Less popular was spectrum access through a third-party platform at 9%, and spectrum leased from a mobile network operator at 21%. The second question was, which vertical sector do you think will have the most prominent 5G use cases in the next 5 years? Smart mobility and transportation, energy, food and agriculture, manufacturing. Now, the top of the poll here was it was manufacturing, healthcare, broadcasting media, retail, and city management. Now, the top of the poll here, not surprisingly, I think, given the content of our presentations, was manufacturing with 29% of the vote. Healthcare at 16, broadcasting media had 13, but surprisingly, maybe retail had 0, city management had 10%. So maybe we'll start the questions while we're waiting for questions to come in from the audience. Maybe we'll start the questions looking at the answers to the polls, and perhaps I'll turn first of all to you, Heidi, for the first question, for the which mechanism which spectrum access mechanism best suits industry and vertical users. It was very close between local application or license sharing mechanism and a service provided by an MNO. That seems to, I think we may have lost Heidi. That seems to reflect the approach taken by Traficom in Finland. Is that correct? I think we've lost Heidi. So perhaps if I turn the question over to Reza, do you have an opinion? Does that match with your expectations?
Yes, thank you, Colin. I think that the answer is expected. As I said during my presentation, I think depending on the type of the industry and the specific applications and use cases that are going to be running, in cases you would see that going through an MNO is the best choice because of the availability of the service and the advancement and how it's integrated, whether there are previous business cooperation between the vertical and the operator, the business aspects. There are so many elements in there that would come into play to determine whether going through an MNO is the best answer or not. In many cases it is. But there are also cases where for instance, an advanced industrial plant where very much low latency and ultra reliability is of the issue, specifically with latency and security, privacy. Some manufacturing plants might want to be able to have a lot of decision making on premises as opposed to going through an external network. So it is expected that depending on the type of the vertical and the application, we would see a combination of these happening, and it's important that both are enabled. Thank you.
Okay. So we've got a number of questions from the audience directed to different individuals in the panel. So I'll try to pick one for each of you, and I'll start with Dennis. As expected, there's been some interest in the telemedicine use case, and we've had a question from Yishin Chan at Plum Consulting, and the question is, do the patients, the recipients of the teleconsultation, are they required to be HKT 5G subscribers to access the service?
Yeah, thanks for the question first. Honestly, the answer is simple, is no, because we think it is a teleconsultation services, right? It is not an operator's services. So we should not bound to individuals who are going to use our mobile networks to be the only users that can enjoy this kind of services. So that's why when we design these services, it is generally for all the users using different operators. But honestly, we are still thinking of to customize, or I would not say customize, I would say to fine-tune the networks to provide a better qualities for these kinds of applications, because both application side and network side, even though the fixed and the mobile network will be controlled by ourselves, so we can fine-tune the network, including the fixed and the mobile side, to make sure the quality delivered from end to end will be guaranteed or will be much better when running these kind of applications. But we all know that in the mobile network, we cannot guarantee anything, but we still can make sure that there will be low bottleneck in terms of interconnection between two different networks, because we are on both fixed and mobile networks. And let's come to the answers. Yeah.
Many thanks for that, Dennis. Now, if I turn to another question, which is from an anonymous member of the audience, they're asking, do the panelists think that regulators should be reserving spectrum specifically for use by vertical industries? And if so, in which bands? Now, I'll come to you last, Heidi, and maybe if I can ask that question to Raymond. You focused on specific industry verticals in your presentation. Should it be dedicated spectrum for different verticals?
I see from my personal view is it really depends on different countries' strategy. So we see different countries, they have their different considerations about this topic, whether they want to allocate some specific spectrum for some industry. And also, it also depends on what kind of industry we are talking about. It's also related to the scale of the enterprise, the size of the enterprise, and also the ICT capability of the enterprise. It's really depends. Of course, it's also relevant to use cases. I mean, if it's a use cases like connectivity in a very wide area, for example, national wide area connectivity requirements. In that case, normally you prefer to leverage operators and also operator spectrum to implement that. But if it's a very local use case, very in a limited range of location, then maybe you will prefer to have your own spectrum. So that's really depends on different situations.
And perhaps briefly, Heidi, is that your? Do you share a similar view as Raymond?
Yes, and as I told you, we had already reserved the 2.3 gigahertz and the 26 gigahertz for private and local use, and we are now waiting to see what is the interest and what kind of use we will have. I think maybe the most challenging use cases are if you want to have a very wide area private network. So when it comes to spectrum management, for example, and now we see that we try to make them to have quite local networks right now, but we have also some interest from, for example, from cities to cover whole very large cities with the private networks, private city network or local city networks, and I'm not sure how we can meet that interest, but let's see.
Okay, and for the wide area networks, are you at Trafficom? Are you considering terrestrial cellular technology as the only platform? Or are you looking at complementary technologies such as Wi-Fi or satellite? Within 3GPP, they've done a lot of standards work to make sure that these platforms are part of the ecosystem.
Yes, we already have a very wide Wi-Fi, citywide Wi-Fi networks in some cities. Satellite, we don't have much satellite services here because we have very good mobile networks and everybody uses those. And it's not a problem if you cooperate with the mobile network operators and use their spectrum. But if, like, for example, a city would like to build their own 5G network covering the whole city of demand, we can perhaps not meet yet.
Yeah. Okay. Many thanks for that. Now, we have another question. What is there scope for third parties to come into the market as spectrum traders or secondary trading of licensees? Do you see that as an opportunity? That question's from Shi Samon from CSM, and I'll again, Reza, it's you were the first to speak, so let's go with you again here.
Thank you. Maybe that would be a question for Heidi, who's the regulator here, but I think that I can start. Secondary trading is something that generally is encouraged in many geographies, because it usually leads to better utilization of spectrum. As for instance, in the United States, with secondary trading is allowed in almost every band that's being allocated to the mobile service, and in many cases it has been creating opportunities. For instance, in whether it's high ranges or in the mid ranges, the low ranges, it has been, but maybe Heidi has a better view.
Heidi?
Yes, well, not currently. We don't see that as an opportunity, but maybe in the higher bands to come, in the 40 gigahertz and in the 70 gigahertz bands, it could be. I mean, maybe we need to allow some shared access, and perhaps there could be some databases to coordinate these, and maybe also a third party to provide that service. I don't know. That's to see for the future. That's my own thoughts.
Colin, if I may, I thought I don't know, maybe I was misunderstood. I thought you were talking about secondary trading or leasing of licensed spectrum. Okay.
It was. Is there an opportunity for a market for secondary trading of spectrum, Heidi?
Well, I don't currently see that in our country.
Okay. Perhaps one other question. There are so lots of the applications. Well, we've mentioned that there isn't one regulatory or one technical solution for all applications. It's going to be a mixed bag, as we say here. Now, with that in mind, are you seeing your clients expect different technologies for different applications and different licensing frameworks for different applications, such as unlicensed for Wi-Fi, blanket national licensing for the fulfillment of universal service, and then maybe a tiered licensing framework for shared or for localized networks? Are you? I know that there's a mix of these these frameworks being deployed. Do you think that trend will continue? And if so, one supplementary question: what role do technologies such as geolocation and sensing, and maybe AI, have in the implementation of those frameworks? Any takers? Okay, Raymond. Oh, sorry to pick on you.
I think actually we are talking with lots of different kind of industrial enterprises, and we see they have a common expectation on communication technology. They want to have one unified network, one unified technology to solve all of their problems, or to fulfill all of the connectivity related requirements. I know this is ideal, but I can tell this is a very common need from the verticals. They don't want to have different technologies for different applications. They want to have a better consolidated network structure. So this is my view, what I see from the enterprises.
Okay, that I guess that surprises me, because from the end user point of view, perhaps incorrectly, I think I would have been of the opinion that they perhaps don't care what the network infrastructure is, what the underlying technology is, so long as it works. They don't, so long as they can deliver their needs via the network, they don't need to worry about what technology actually provides the connectivity. Is that fair or not? And then maybe the second part of the question, back to Heidi, on the role of sensing and geolocation and AI in maybe the spectrum management aspects of this discussion. So first part to Raymond about the...
Yes, I think they still care, especially the large enterprises. They still care about the low-level technologies, what they are using. I see they are seriously comparing Wi-Fi and cellular technologies to understand. For example, we are telling cellular network can provide better mobility, and many of them, they want to understand the technical details behind why a cellular network can provide better mobility, and what kind of authentication and authorization mechanisms you are using in the network. They want to really understand the details, and then they decide their technology strategies, because that will lead to a long-term technology foundation for their production network. So they treat it seriously. So what I see is they do care about the details and technical details.
Okay. Yeah. And to you, Heidi, about the application of technology to spectrum management practices, do you see that trend continuing?
So you were asking about sensing. I couldn't hear the whole question.
So as the pressure on different frequencies intensifies, we're seeing administrations around the world implement technology as an enabler for spectrum sharing. CBRS in the States is one example where they have sensors and geolocation databases. AI is another potential technology which could improve both spectrum management and network efficiency. Do you see that trend continuing in the future? Do you see it becoming a de facto everyday part of the spectrum management system?
Yes, I think that we have some 6G research ongoing in Finland very actively. And in that context, these technologies are discussed a lot, and also sharing will become very important, perhaps, for example, in the higher bands. Yeah.
Okay, well, with that, I believe we are just about out of time. So I would, in the first instance, I would like to thank our audience for their participation and for their excellent list of questions. I'm sure you'll join me in thanking our panelists today for their informative and insightful contribution. To Shingo, who's no longer with us, and then to Reza, Raymond, Dennis, and Heidi. I give you my sincere thanks for taking part today and for helping me out. And I'd like to again thank our hosts at Forum Europe. And with that, I would like to bring the session to a close and bid you a good evening, afternoon, or morning, depending on where you are today. Okay, many thanks. Welcome back, Dan.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you very much. And I will echo all of those thanks. And one extra thanks, Colin, to yourself. Thank you very much for an excellently moderated panel. So guys, yeah, that was really interesting and a great way to finish off the day. So thank you all so much. And yeah, really interesting discussions. And as Colin said, thank you also to all of you for. Sorry. Technical difficulties right at the end, sorry. It was going so well, but no, thank you all out there for your questions and for all of those as well. So really was appreciated, and some really good discussion going as well there. So that said, we have now finished for today, as I mentioned. We're back again tomorrow, so we start again tomorrow at 1 o'clock Jakarta time once again. So the topics tomorrow, we move on to look at sub 1 gigahertz spectrum, and also then we have a session that's going to be looking at roadmaps of 5G in countries across the region. So looking at where countries across the region are with developing their roadmaps for the rollout and deployment and planning, I suppose it is, of 5G. And we also tomorrow have our Have Your Say session. So that's an opportunity for all of you out there in the audience to bring your audio and your video live, and to actually come up onto the stage and be part of the discussions, and to give your maybe your key conclusions, your key takeaways from the event as a whole. So all of that's going to be taking place tomorrow. We also have a final set of showcase sessions as well. So one more busy day ahead of us before we wrap up completely on the conference. But in the meantime, once again, thank you so much to all of you out there for your participation today. Thank you for your comments, your questions, and of course, thank you again to all of our speakers, moderators, and panelists that have participated today. So back again here, as I said, at 1 o'clock Jakarta time tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening, everybody, and looking forward to seeing everyone back here again tomorrow. Thank you very much.